Welcome to Facebook people on Facebook Live. This is One Revolution's Nametags Chat. We've been doing this. This is actually our 13th chat. Lucky 1-3 for you, Andrew Kurka. Andrew Kurka is going to be joining us. He is a gold and silver medalist in alpine skiing, downhill, and Super G in Pyeongchang in 2018. He also is it 6-time or 7-time Alaskan state wrestling champion?
7-time Alaska State Wrestling Champion. Yep.
7-time. And had an ATV accident when he was 13 years old and became paralyzed as a result of that, but also came back. This is why I'm a little confused on the wrestling, because there were 6 before his accident, and then he became a state wrestling champion afterwards. As many of you know, our name tags program is based on one of the central things is our 4 S's of resilience: self, situation, support, and strategy. And the question is, are we in self? Are we a victim or survivor? Situation? Is it overwhelming or a challenge? Are we alone or part of a team as far as support is concerned? And then strategies. Do we have one strategy or many? And I am interested in the beginning of this in asking Andrew what his strategies were to become a state champion wrestler after he had broken his back and become paralyzed, because there were a lot of challenges. So Andrew, how did you approach this?
Well, the number one thing was believing in myself. I think, once I started skiing, I started realizing that I could do it. I could do just about anything. I just had to do it in a different way. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start wrestling again. I love wrestling. Wrestling's always been my favorite sport. And I started wrestling. And I think the number one strategy that I came up with was, it didn't matter whether I lost. What mattered is that I figured out how to not lose the same way twice. And when I went out there, I just wanted to focus on doing things differently. I knew that I couldn't be the same. I went out, and instantly you could tell that everything was different because I was paralyzed. My legs didn't work. I was down on my knees, or I was up on one knee when I started wrestling. I had to figure it out. And then when it came to my strategies that I had when I was able-bodied, I actually had to change that around completely, because I was super aggressive. I was always forward moving and always like taking shots and being an extremely aggressive wrestler. And so it always put the person on their heels. And after I broke my back, I started realizing that, I had to be a defensive wrestler. And when I was out there, I was wrestling 125, 130 pounds, and I was stronger than every single person that I was wrestling against. And I'd never focused on that before. So I'd always focused on technique. I'd always focused on, the strategy of attacking the person. But now I had to focus on being a defensive wrestler. And so my big strategy was learning how to do something, just learning how to do it in a different way. And I mean,
and you had to wait for somebody to come to you effectively, because usually, so wrestling, like the first period, you start standing up, right? And the objective is, a takedown. So this is where you're talking, where you're always aggressive and always shooting at the other person, trying to get that initial takedown, and now you kind of had to basically wait for this other wrestler to come to you.
I tell you what, man, patience has been the hardest thing in my entire life. And in this situation, patience was like the number one thing that tried me the most, because I had to wait for them to come to me. And when they came to me, I oftentimes had to wait for them to do a move, and then I would react. And I was lucky in a lot of different situations, because the people that were wrestling me didn't know how to handle this. They'd get close, and like I'd squeeze their hand, and they'd like jerk away, and they would drag me with them, and they were like, they were frightened. So it gave me an advantage in certain ways. I just had to play that advantage into my own hands, so to speak. And
so it was a bit of a mind game in some ways, because they didn't know what to do to you. Because in some ways it sounds like, well, why don't I just go like all the way around this guy and attack him from the back or something, or like, but I think that it sounds like that was a big challenge. But you became a state champion at 125, 130.
Yes, it was 130 pounds.
And so this is like senior year in high school, or when is that?
I was 18 years old. I had just gotten out of high school about a year and a half earlier.
Okay. Okay. So you,
Yeah.
and the funny thing is that people might not know is that you're racing, you're competing at 125, 130, but, or 135 even, but you probably, like, if you still had the full use of your legs, you would have been significantly
If I
heavier.
if I still had full use of my legs, I probably would have been 180.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. It was like like the atrophy in the legs, once you become disabled, your legs atrophy and become a lot weaker because you're not using them. You got to use your muscles and they grow. Use them or lose them. And my muscles, especially in my calves, were extremely atrophied. So I lost, I had probably at least 30 pounds worth of leg muscle or 40 pounds worth of leg muscle. And so you got to realize that all that weight was in my upper body. And especially in Greco-Roman wrestling, it gives you a huge advantage because they have to use their upper body against me and they can't use my legs against me. So when they would come in, I would have an instant advantage on them. There were a lot of times where kids would try to move me and I could literally, or guys would try to move me and I would literally just squeeze them and they would give up because they're 130 pounds with their legs. I'm 130 pounds of upper body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No,
So
it couldn't have always been easy though. I mean, I imagine, like, what was it like the first day getting back out on the mat? And just think, I mean, it had to be so different for you.
it was extremely different, and it was a learning experience. Every single part of it was a learning experience, and like you spoke about strategy, I had to learn a new strategy for everything when it came to wrestling. When I first got back out there, I said, you know what, I'm going to try this again. I started to build that personal confidence back up in my life, which, as you know, like once you become disabled, like your confidence and everything kind of goes out the window. You have to relearn who you are. You have to learn the new you, and you have to learn how to adjust and become the individual that you are, and how to live the life anew. And when I was put in this situation, the first thing I did when I went out on the wrestling mat was be extremely aggressive and move forward and like try to do things that I used to be able to do and like let the muscle memory take over. And I was very aggressive and it worked. It went well, but it was a learning experience because it didn't go as great as it could have. And that's when I learned that, the way that I used to do things, that kind of had to go out the window. And the new me, the individual that was now disabled, had to learn how to wrestle in a completely different way.
How long did that take, or how did you come up with the idea of what you were going to do? I mean, and you're kind of like the python in the wicker basket kind of thing, like waiting to strike kind of thing is what
Yeah.
I'm imagining. How did you look at that and say, okay, because I imagine it's probably exhausting, like you don't have the same muscular, like with your legs, you don't have the same muscular strength, right? So if you're
It's
if you're
true.
being aggressive, you probably can do that for a short period of time,
Hmm.
and then you're completely done and not very effective as a wrestler.
Yes, exactly. So, like in my upper body, since I used it the entire time, I used it to both move myself and to manipulate my opponents. It gave me an extreme disadvantage because I would tire out probably after 30 seconds or one straight minute of battle. And I started to learn that if I backed off, I let them come to me, and I just rested in one position and like just sat in the middle of the mat and just followed them with my body, like turned as they tried to come around me. When they finally came to me, I was able to manipulate their bodies. And being strong enough, like the way I explain it is, imagine fighting someone or trying to move someone whose arms are as strong as your legs. If someone who's able-bodied tries to imagine that, that's pretty much what it was with me. It gave me a significant advantage. It was just when it I would have to say losing is how I learned. to be honest with you. Like that's, I think to answer your base question, was losing was how I learned. I practiced and I tried it, and then I lost a lot. And then finally, when it came down to it, when it came to the state championship, I've always been a bit more of a rise to the challenge type person. So I had gotten silver and I'd gotten bronze and I've gotten a few fourth places throughout the tournaments leading into that one. And then leading into the state champion wrestling tournament, I decided on some new moves that I was going to do. And I had been practicing them all season long. And then when it came to state, I used them. And with them being new moves, and me being the new person that they had wrestled, they'd never wrestled a person with a disability before. A lot of the people didn't know how to handle it, and it showed to my advantage.
The novelty of the whole thing. I would
Yeah.
imagine, I mean, one, you're talking about that you learned a lot from losing at the tournaments, but also I would imagine you had to practice every day. You were training every single day. And I would imagine there were some losses, effectively losses. I mean, they don't go in your wins and loss in the wins and loss column, but at the same time, in practice, you were wrestling against someone else. And so you probably learned a lot there as well.
Every loss is a loss, whether in
It's you right
practice.
there.
Yeah, every whether it be in practice, whether it be at a tournament, if you are 100% wrestling another person 100%, every loss that you have is a learning experience. And so whether it came down to it, whether I lost in a wrestling tournament or whether I lost to my brother wrestling at home, like it was a loss, and every single loss is a learning experience. And that's what practice is for, because in practice, you're able to go back to it and you're able to go through it again and you're able to learn from it. And, you're able to repeat it and you're say, well, in this situation where I lost in this way, let's go back and let's put ourselves in that same situation and let me see how I can not lose in that way again. And I think, it's like most things in life, it's a learning experience when it comes down to it. You look at it and you learn from it, you analyze the situation, and then you overcome it for the next time.
But we don't want to continue to repeat our mistakes, because
Exactly.
then they become a habit. And so,
Yeah.
so it's reconfiguring, coming back and trying not to lose in the same way. But what's the thought process? Because I would imagine that some of that happened at practice, where under the guidance of your coach,
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, this is what's going on. Can you try this time? I mean, where are the suggestions coming from in how you do things differently?
Honestly, they came from me.
They did. Okay.
Yeah, I would say, so a lot of coaches didn't know how to handle what was going on. I had one coach, Dave Booth, who he was like, hey man, you're being too aggressive, slow down, like let them come to you. And that was a very simple thing that taught me a lot. But when it came down to the moves and how to do everything, I wrestled in such an unorthodox way that I had to do it in my own way from beginning to end. And there's a lot of different things to overcome, but once you become disabled, everything is an obstacle, and you learn to overcome it. That's all there is to it.
And a lot of it is the unorthodox. I mean, they had to learn you in order to beat you. And you had that as part of your advantage.
Oh
Where
yeah.
did skiing come in with regard to wrestling along this timeline? When did you start skiing again in the
So
monoski?
I started adaptive skiing when I was 15 years old.
Okay.
And I skied for the first time by the suggestion of a physical therapist and loved it. I always wanted to be an Olympic wrestler. That was always my dream. And I was a really good wrestler prior to the fact that I broke my back. And afterwards, once I started skiing, it kind of, like I said earlier, it kind of rejuvenated my entire, I don't want to say persona, but my identity. It helped me make my identity again. It was something that I enjoyed and something that I really wanted to exist for, was, that competitive spirit sport. And I really had that with wrestling. It was something that I was constantly pursuing. Every day I ran 5 miles. Every day I hiked 2 miles. Every day I would go for a run and I would wrestle and I would work out. Every single day I pursued that goal of wanting to be the best. And I'd done that ever since I was a young kid, and so like that was all taken away from me when I was 13 years old. And then I was introduced to skiing at 15. And right after I was introduced to skiing, like it was like a month afterwards, I started wrestling again. I was like, I can do it. I just got to do it differently. It's not popping my feet into a ski boot. It's sitting down and getting into a normal ski, just like anybody else skis on. I just ski on one of them and I race down the mountain. And I realized that I could do it. I just had to do it differently. And so that was when I started doing everything. That was when, like I used to always go kayaking. I used to always go fishing. And I started learning how to load my canoes in the back of the truck on my own. That was when I started learning to walk again. That was when I started learning to do everything, because I had that identity. I had that drive to, want to be a new person. And
so skiing opened that up for you. That's it. Had you skied prior to your accident?
No, I hadn't. And no, I hadn't. And, I mean, that identity, like I've seen it in a lot of situations in life, and I know it's extremely important. And I know I just keep talking, and I know it's a questions and answers, but that I want to just clarify on that identity, because a lot of people lose it. Like I see it with people who go through divorces or people that get personally damaged, like in one way or another. It's like you lose a piece of your identity. And there's a lot of things in the world that can bring that back. And I just want to clarify that can't happen. That's really it. And that pain is something that it almost feels like you can't overcome, but I know you can in any given situation.
Because you've done it. And so you went through that after your ATV accident, where you thought, okay, I'm done. I'm going to cut myself off. In a lot of ways, it sounded like you cut yourself off from the things that were really important to you, from wrestling, from kayaking, from the hard work, as well is what it sounds like, that the daily struggle of trying to get better. When you started skiing, did you start thinking about the Paralympics when you first started skiing? Was that the thing that sort of renewed this dream? But you
First day.
did go back for sure.
Yeah. First day. Yeah.
Really?
First day. Yeah. First day. They said, yeah, you could take this as far as you want. You could be the best in the world at it. And that was always my dream. And I said, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. And, to go back on the first thing that you said, it was like, yeah, I cut a lot of the things out of my life because I couldn't really do them anymore. I couldn't wrestle like I could before. So I kind of cut it out of my life. So much of my personal self-identity had to do with my legs in my life. It had to do with using my legs. It had to do with my friends through wrestling. It had to do with, those different aspects. And, I started to realize that, what, I can still do those things. I just had to do them differently. And it helps. It helps when you realize that you don't have to stop anything that you were doing, with whenever you have a pain. It's almost like a pain inflicts fear in your life. And so you're afraid to pursue that same thing again. But, a lot of times if you face that fear, then you don't have to worry about it. You can overcome just about anything, and you can keep living a life that you want to live. For me, that's the way it was.
So you said that when you first started skiing, you thought you could become the best in the world if you were willing to work hard enough, if you were willing to do everything you were supposed to do. What was the thing that really helped you over that hurdle? Was it having that kind of a goal? Was it realizing that you could have that kind of a goal, which then populated the rest of your life in a lot of ways, the other things that you want to do? How did it happen?
It was the realization. So I was a wrestler, and I was always pursuing wrestling, and I was always wanting to be the best wrestler in the world because of something my coach told me when I was younger. You know, my wrestling coach. This was when I was like 8 years old. I had just walked off the wrestling mat, and I had just won my very first state championship. I walked off the wrestling mat, walked up to my coach, and I was like, you know, I was a little kid. I was like, yeah, whatever, so happy. Yeah, give me a hug, you know, high five, whatever. I just won. That's cool, coach, right? But like, it was at that moment, you know, he grabbed me and he looked at me and he said, remember right now, there's always going to be someone better. And that was when I decided I wanted to be the best because, you know, as simple as it is, I think I wanted him to be proud of me. You know, I was young, and I just kind of always pursued that, and I never really forgot it. To this day, I remember it clear as day. I was 8 years old. You know, that was 20 years ago. And when it comes down to it, the moment I heard about when I was out there skiing, and the moment I heard that I had a chance to be the best in the world, that all I had to do was pursue it, that all I had to do was strive to be the best, I was like, I'm going to do everything I can. Like, this is a dream that I had when I was young, and I'm not going to give it up. I never wanted to give it up. It was so much of my identity as a child and in my young life growing up. And then the moment I was 13, turning 14, and I broke my back, that identity was just like flushed down the toilet. That goal that I had, that dream that I had was just kind of thrown away. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I found that again in ski racing. I found that personal identity, that sense of competition in my soul. I think it really
So
helps.
when he said that there'll always be somebody better, what did that do? What did that do in you? Because I mean,
Uh,
it's an easy enough way to say, okay, there's always going to be somebody better.
yeah,
You know,
he was right. As simple as it was, he was right. Like, and I knew that I couldn't deny that. There's always going to be a better wrestler out there. And the only way to prove that I was the best was to be an Olympian and to be the best in the world.
but what were the steps? I mean, it sounds like the steps that you used to get there were the important part, right? It's like, because I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
somebody tells you there's always going to be somebody better. How do you solve that? How do you say, okay, well, I understand that there are really good people out there.
yeah. I think it's the process. Focusing on the process will lead to the product, and that's always something that I think has really helped me to pursue greatness in life. I want to be great at every single thing that I do, and I'm going to focus on being the best at every little single thing that I do. And when I was 8 years old, I was up all night thinking about it. I couldn't sleep. You know, I was like, there is always going to be someone better. I thought I was the best because I just won state championship. You know, that's first place. But no, you know, there's 50 states out there. There's 237 more countries. You know, there's 7 billion more people out there. How many of them wrestle, and how many of them are better than I am? And you know, that's something that has really helped me to be the best at a lot of things that I do. Is I just simply focus on being the best at every little thing that I'm going to do. You know, if practice makes perfect, if you practice perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And that very simply on its own is something that I pursue in life. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. If I'm going to mess up, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it better. And that's what's led me here.
How did that work in skiing? So you started skiing up in Alaska with Challenge Alaska.
That's right.
Which just to give a little bit of a preview as well. So you're from, I mean, you consider the hometown to be Palmer, Alaska.
Yep.
Which is kind of interesting because there was another guy from Palmer,
Tommy Moe.
Alaska, who won two.
Tommy Moe.
Yeah, Tommy Moe,
Yeah.
who won a gold and a silver in downhill and super G. I mean, he preceded you 1994 versus 2018, so he was a couple of years ahead of you. But but kind of interesting that there are two of you who with the exact same results in a lot of ways. And I'd imagine Tommy is one of those guys who would celebrate, you know, I don't know if you've met Tommy, but he would be super excited about you winning and doing exactly the same thing that he did and being from the same place. So
yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And, you know, it's funny because I never really knew who Tommy Moe was until I started ski racing. And I drove past every single day on my way to wrestling practice, on my way home, on my way to skiing, on my way back. I drove past a bridge that's dedicated to Tommy Moe over the Matanuska River. I was like, oh, Tommy Moe. Oh, Tommy Moe. And then I started ski racing and I was like, oh, Tommy Moe. So it was an interesting thing, you know. It's kind of one of those fun things, and I'd love to meet him one of these days. I'm sure you have, right?
I have met Tommy. Tommy, actually, it's funny you talk about starting your Paralympic career. I went to New Zealand one summer to train with a group from Winter Park, and I didn't know anybody, and I couldn't ski to save my life. I mean, it was not good. And I had met Tommy. Tommy and my brother were in a NORAM in Washington State the spring before, and I had my monoski out. And it was my first year of skiing, and I went out and skied. And Tommy's one of the most, you know, just generous, gregarious kind of guys. And he said, he's like, "Oh man, that's so cool." And I landed in New Zealand, and he must have been on the same plane. And we're all waiting to get our bags and stuff. And he said to these guys whom I just met, who were part of my group, he's like, "This guy rips about me." And I'm like, well, it's not really true, but thanks, Tommy. You know, like, this is a ringing endorsement. Like, this is awesome. So yeah, no, I've met Tommy a few times, and he would absolutely love to meet you. But I want to know how some of that story. I mean, we've already told that you got to the gold and the silver in Pyeongchang, but there were a lot of steps along the way to get there, and a lot of strategies. I mean, one of the big strategies was that you always had the speed, but you needed to find the finish line in order to actually.
So I know exactly what you're getting at, and I would say the personal growth that helped me to get there. So you're right. I always had the speed. I've always been fearless, and my fearlessness throughout my career has resulted in multiple broken bones, from, you know, a broken back a couple times, shoulder, femur, you name it. And I think the largest learning experience for me was about a 6-month span right after Sochi in 2014. And it's
Which was
still
your first games.
It was
right?
My very first games. Yeah, I just made the team. I was on the team for 2 years, and then I was sent. It was probably like my fourth downhill ever was Sochi, and I had won, or not won. I'd gotten silver medal in a couple downhills before that. You know, so like I hadn't competed in a lot of downhills, but I was showing a lot of promise.
And the downhill, the fastest of the 4 events, where you're going, you know, 70, sometimes 70 plus miles an hour in a monoski. So
it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
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 Those things.
Yeah. My favorite things in life. So, I had broke my back in Sochi in the training run. I never even made it to the real race. I broke my back in Sochi. I crashed, and I was
No additional spinal damage.
no
Though.
additional spinal damage. No.
Okay.
So I got lucky in that aspect, but I got very unlucky because I wasn't able to compete. And they didn't want me there for the rest of the games. They sent me home immediately. So I didn't get a chance to experience even opening ceremonies or any of that. They sent me immediately home. And so I was watching, you know, all my friends on the plane and compete. And I was like, man, you know, I wish I was there competing. It's all I've ever really wanted is this opportunity. And then it was about 3 years after that. Oh, no, sorry, 3 months. 3 months after that, I broke my right femur in an accident training, an on-hill collision with a young man training at Aspen Mountain. And
3 months later. So you didn't take, I mean, 3 months is basically what it takes for bone to heal. So this is pretty much as soon as your back
so,
is healed.
soon as I was back, I'd been skiing for about a week.
Okay.
I got back on the snow, and there was an on-hill collision, and my right femur was broken, and I was rushed to the hospital. And throughout this is the most painful experience I've ever had in my entire life. And I've broken a lot of bones, but my right femur was amazing. So I had just I woke up tomahawking down the mountain, or sliding down the mountain. Everyone was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" I was totally out of it. I looked down at my right leg, and it was like this, poking out through my skin. And so I tried to push it back in, and the pain was so severe that I was passing out. And um, I was taken to the hospital, and I very specifically remember on my way to the hospital, I was in such shock, and I've never been able to do this ever in my entire life other than this one time, was they were trying to keep me awake because I was falling asleep, and I was having seizures from the amount of pain that was going through my body. And they said, say the alphabet backwards, stay awake, say the alphabet backwards, use your brain, do whatever you can. And I said the alphabet backwards, without stopping. I was like, Z, Y, X, U, V, W, whatever, all the way. I can't even do it now. And I did it without stopping all the way to A. And the moment I hit A, I was like, I fell right back asleep. Yeah. And I remember I went to the hospital, I had surgery, and then I had to wait another 3 to 4 months before I could ski again. And I can't really explain the pain of breaking a femur, especially when your legs don't work. Because I can feel my legs, but I can't move them. And so the pain of having a broken femur, especially when you can't control the way your legs are moving, is something completely different. There's moments where you have to stop and you can't breathe or can't move because the pain is just excruciating. And so I would lay in bed, and I would plan out my day, and I would set baby goals to help myself grow. And I remember this because I was laying in bed, and I would try to crawl out of bed, and I'd be like, okay, I got to get to the front door. I have to pee. I got to get out of bed, I'd crawl to the front door, and I would stop, and I'd take deep breaths, and then I'd open the door, and then I'd crawl to the couch, and I'd stop, and I'd take deep breaths and let the pain subside, and then I'd crawl to the bathroom. And it was moments like this that I realized that, to get to the big picture, I had to take baby steps, even if it was to take a pee with a broken femur and the excruciating pain. I had to do it. I had to. And so I made those baby steps, and I pursued these goals. And it was at a time like that I realized that, when it came to ski racing, all I had to do was the same thing. I was fast. I had everything I needed, but at every single race, if I just became a little bit better, or every time I set that little goal I wanted to pursue, if I just became a little bit better, and 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 a little bit better every single time, then I knew that I would be the best. And it was at that time that I actually my career started growing.
Okay, so back up just a little bit. So you had to get a little bit better, but with what objective? I mean, with the objective of winning, but what were you trying to improve upon?
It wasn't ever the objective of winning.
Okay.
Winning is a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Winning is a bonus of being the best that I can be. And that's really all there is to it. The objective was to be the best skier that I could be. That was it.
And so what did you need? What were these baby steps to be the best skier that you needed to be? What did you need to do to achieve that objective?
I learned as I went, and that's as simple as I can say it. I grew, and I learned as I grew. And like I became faster. And as I became faster, I had to learn how to adapt to the speed. I had to learn how to absorb the speed. I learned how to assess and then reinitiate with the speed. I had to learn how to be a new skier over and over and over and over again, because as you get better, you get faster. As you get faster, you have to adjust to the way you do things. And
adjusting technically or tactically, so in terms of what you're doing with your body or where you're making your turn or what parts of it, because you have to have clear objectives, right? In terms of, if I'm taking this run, I want to do this better in
so
order to take that step.
it was a bit of everything. So I said, okay, this is a flatter area. I know that I need to arc my ski on every single turn in this area. And I learned that from the last race where I stiveted on the flats and it slowed me down, or I sprayed snow, or whatever.
Right.
It's
clean arc, right? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can take these things and you can translate them to just about anything in life, because as you grow, challenges grow with you, and so you need to learn how to continue to learn and overcome each and everything. But when it came down to it, you know arcing the ski, I couldn't stivet on the flats, so I knew I had to arc the ski. When I knew that I had to arc the ski on the flats, I knew that I had to adjust for my speed coming onto the next pitch, or I knew that I had to adjust because I would mess up, or I would fail in my own given way. And
Sure.
so I would have to go back and I would have to reassess myself, and I have to reassess how I was doing things. And so when it came down to it, it was everything. Like you have to relearn everything. When it's life. When you grow as an individual, when you grow as a person, when you're becoming better at something, no matter really what it is, the challenges that come along with it, that you're going to face, grow with it. And so you have to learn to overcome it. When it was skiing, it was arcing my turns. And then when I found out that I had too much speed, I knew that I had to subside my speed. I knew that I had to stivet my ski. I knew that I had to assess and manage what I had going on. And so if you want technical ski terms, I can give those to you right now.
No. But I mean,
the
concepts of what you're trying to do, because I mean, this and this will come back up. We'll talk about this when we talk about your run in Pyeongchang, your downhill run in Pyeongchang.
Okay. Yeah.
But was there an emotional part of it that you had to overcome as well? You just rebroken your back on the course in Sochi, which was a fairly nasty course. You got your dream taken away from you. Then as soon as you get back to it, then you're broken again and have to start over all again. Was there an emotional part? Was there a fear? How did that part work?
Chris, the emotional part is the most painful part that I've ever had to deal with in my entire life.
Right.
Is the fear of failure is really what it is. I've never been afraid of crashing and breaking bones and being injured.
Not the physical part, right?
Not the physical part. Yeah, that's probably why I've been injured a lot, honestly. But it was always the fear of failure and the fear of never doing my best and never having lived to the fullest or achieving the dreams that I've always really wanted to achieve. Achieving the goals that I've always really pursued. And when it comes down to it, I faced those fears, and almost like the worst happened, to be honest.
Hold on one second. So the fear of failure is the biggest fear. How does that manifest itself? What does that feel like? Does it stop you from doing what you want to do? Are you protective of yourself, or what does the fear of failure feel like?
It feels like that thing that we talked about earlier. When I broke my back and I lost my legs and I had to achieve that personal growth, that internal growth that I had to learn to overcome, and I had to learn to to reassess everything in my life and grow as an individual. That's what it feels like. That's what
Because
failure,
you were
that's what
cutting
fear
yourself
is.
off from the things that you really liked, or
It was because I feared continuing, or I feared pursuing, or I feared wanting to keep growing.
putting
When it,
yourself out there and
yeah,
and potentially having it. But
yeah,
you're such a process oriented person that the learning comes along the way, and each failure is there for a reason.
yes,
But yet the
yeah,
fear of failure is the thing that crops up and keeps you from that thing that is really, in some ways, the essence of who you are.
it is, yes. And when it, as simple simple as I can say it, is the thing that drives me. You know, the fear of failure. What are you if you don't pursue the best version of yourself in life? You're something that has given up along the way. And as simple as it is, that I don't want that to be me. I want to pursue the physical things in life, the personal joys. I want to pursue the emotional joys in life. And I want to pursue being the best that I can be in all those different aspects. I want to give back in all those different aspects. And I want to feel the pleasure of succeeding in all those different aspects. And success, when just the definition of success isn't having actually achieved something, it's doing something purposefully in life. It's pursuing a goal with purpose. That's
Mm-hmm.
what success is. We've all achieved success in our own ways, and so have I.
Sure.
Yeah.
So is this so essentially pursuing it that way? Looking at the definition of success in that way for you, was that a reframing of this fear of failure that allowed you to to move forward to pursue that dream?
Um, I would I would have to say with a reframing, yes. Um, um, I would have to say that for every 20 steps forward that you take for personal growth, something's going to happen that sends you back 10 steps. And when
Mm-hmm.
you get sent back 10 steps, it feels like you fell a mile,
You'll
but
never get there. Yeah.
yeah, it feels like you'll never get there. And it feels like, maybe you should just stop now, or, you know, maybe this isn't for me. But a lot of times I find when you fall back and you kind of have that failure in life, that you just change your perspective and keep pushing. And that's when that emotional pain hits you the hardest, is when you feel like, hey, phew, I failed at this. But if you take a step back and you put that pain aside and you look at really what you've achieved leading up to that, chances are, like, there's a lot of good that's come from it. From any pain in life, there's yin and yang. Like, that's a it's a
Right. Sure.
thing. Yeah, it is. From any pain in life, like William Shakespeare, like, better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. That is applied to so many different things in life. So many, from Buddhism and Hinduism to Christianity to so many different things. They explain this in their works and in their teachings, and it's something that people have lived through. It's a process that everyone has had. Everyone has to grow through, and some people, when they're faced with those options, they're faced with those different things in life, they take a step back. Some people, they keep stepping forward. you know you're Whether you're forced to take 10 steps back or not, it's up to you to choose to keep stepping forward or to keep stepping back. um,
Exactly. So it sounds like really for you that the greatest failure is to succumb to this fear of failure, because that means you were never actually in the fight.
Exactly.
Being a wrestler, you were never in the fight. And so this is what you brought, but you were a bit more strategic, it sounds like, as you approached Pyeongchang in the downhill. So you went out in the training run, which, for those who don't know, a training run of a downhill is pretty much exactly like the race. It just doesn't count.
Yeah.
And
It's as simply as it is. Yeah.
and the last part is the most important part, that it really doesn't count. But it sounds like that you approached it more strategically when you approached. And how many training runs did you get in Pyeongchang? Did you get 3 training runs, or
One.
you got 1 training run?
We got 1 training run, and the rest were canceled by weather.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I got like 8th or 12th in the training run, something like that.
But
Again,
it sounded like you didn't want to do the same thing in Pyeongchang that you did in Sochi.
oh man, I'm gonna be honest with you. I just wanted to get through that training run.
Right.
Yeah, the moment I got through that training run, I was like, I made it farther than I did last time. You know, I proved to myself I overcame that fear, and I'm one step closer to being better than I ever was before. And the moment I completed that training run, I knew it for a fact. And I think everyone knew it. Everyone, the competitors from the other countries, everyone, they knew it when they were looking at me, that I I knew that I was going to be like, I knew that I wasn't going to be beaten that run if I made it to the bottom. And everyone knew it. Like, I was either going to crash or I was going to finish, and I was going to win. And luckily I won.
Now, to back up, because you were talking about one of your strategic moves, one of the things that you were trying to teach yourself as you were getting there was to arc on the top. And for those who don't necessarily know what that means, it's the objective in making a ski turn is to make as clean a turn as possible. And so you really want to bend that ski and make the ski turn. You have the other option of pivoting the ski and pointing it in the direction, but that's not nearly as fast. And so the top of Pyeongchang was sort of, relatively rolly and flat.
Bumpy.
But
Yeah, it was
then
bumpy.
it was bumpy and stuff like that, but it was not super steep. But then there was, as you came onto the flats, there was a big, what we'd call a right-footed turn, even though you're not necessarily using your right foot to do this, but a big turn as you're coming down onto there. And everybody had a really hard time with that one turn as you came onto the flats. You didn't have as hard a time as other people, but as you're in the race course, you're thinking, like I just dumped a lot of speed right there. Is that something that came through your mind, or what were you thinking in that moment?
In that moment, I'd say, I don't want to say the moment of a moment of doubt. I think I said, okay, well, I need to go faster now. And so I focused on the next gate. When especially on a race course, when the mistakes are made, you can't be like, oh man, that back there happened. You're like, okay, well, do better here.
Right.
Onto the next gate. Onto the
You
gate
do have
after.
that clock in your head, right? That clock in your head is going, I just lost a little bit of time. And you
Well,
often think everybody else is going to do it better.
Yeah, well, I definitely kind of thought that, but I mean, when all honesty, if I nailed that turn, I might have been going too fast to make the next one. I'm gonna be honest. It was pretty tough.
Yep.
As it was kind of tough to stay in it, because of the speed that I was going. And a huge part of that were, I think, my techs and the people that helped me to be there. Like,
Right. Your skis were really fast, and
uh,
yeah.
yeah, I skied it well, and my skis were really fast, and that helped me to crush. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, whenever you achieve a goal in life, a lot of times there's a support system behind you that really helps to get you there. And especially when it comes to ski racing, you have the coaches feeding you information to the top of the hill. You have techs that tune your skis while you're racing every single spot. Your coaches relay it to you so that you know what to do and how to assess it, so that you can be just a little bit faster, bumps to avoid, areas to where you can get a little bit of speed. Make sure right here you set the arc in the fall line so that you can use gravity to your advantage when you're entering the next turn. And that area where I actually had that little bit of a mess up coming on to the second pitch, right there, that area, my coach had actually told me when coming into that to start my turn before I ever even saw that next gate. And I did. I started my turn before I ever even saw that next gate. And I think that saved me.
Right.
To be honest, like I slowed down a little bit, but I don't want to really say that I slowed down right there. I just ceased to accelerate in that spot.
Sure.
And
It's just a little bit of a change. And so
yeah.
then, then you skied great the rest of it. It's just some of these are the thoughts that happen to you as
Oh
you're in the
man.
midst of the course of like, uh-oh, I better, shift again and get going.
There's so many doubts. There's so many doubts, just like with everything in life, whenever you're trying to pursue or whenever you're trying to get there, there's always doubts, little mess ups. Even if I ran the most perfect race, I still have doubts. I
Oh,
still had
always.
doubts. Oh yeah. And there's always something you can do better. And a lot of people, they take that and they turn it into a negative thing in life. But I think if you embrace it, is really where the personal growth happens.
Exactly. So you finished
Yeah.
and you got the green light when you finish. So you finish and you're ahead.
hmm
What's going through your mind then when you finish and you're ahead? You've struggled, you've broken back, broken femur, all this little bite-sized stuff. What does it feel like when you get there?
It was, did I do it?
Did
Did
I
I
do
do
it?
it? Did
Did you
I?
question whether it actually
Did I?
happened?
I did. Yeah. Oh man. It didn't even seem real until I had the medal put around my neck. To be completely honest with you, it was like I all I wanted to do really when it came down to it was I just wanted to run a good race, because I had failed so hard before. Like I failed so hard, man. Like 4 years earlier, broke my back, broke my femur. I failed. Like I failed. It was a black cloud that hung over me, and like a huge doubt that hung over me. You know, teammates teased me about it whenever anything happened. Like it was just so rough. Like just personally, like and I held it all in. And then Pyeongchang happened, and I was in the first place spot, and I was like, did I do it? Is this happening? And like it started sinking in when I was sitting there, and Akira Kano of Japan was beside me, and he said, "Good win." And he doesn't like really like, he speaks a little English, but he was like, "Good win," and I was like, "Thank you." And then Corey Peters was on my right side in the bronze medal position, and he said, "Dude, you got it." Like, and
You're still sweating it out. There's still
I'm
people
like,
coming down who can
yeah, the
beat you.
people are yelling in the stands. There's still people coming down. Corey Peters, which is like one of my largest competitors. We compete against each other, make jokes with each other. Like there was one year where every single race we had, whether it be Super G or downhill, we were within 500ths of each other. Every single race that year, every single race. That is like a blink is a tenth of a second. A tenth of a second right there. 500ths of a second was how close we were. Like, he is one of my largest competitors. And he looked at me and he said, "Dude, no one's going to catch you. Great race." And I was like, okay, like maybe I did this. Maybe I finally achieved
Right.
the dream that I've been pursuing my entire life, and this one thing. And whenever anyone asks me, what's the single greatest thing you've ever done in life, and I say it was achieving my dream. That was it.
Well, I mean, there is that, but you also you were consumed with giving back. I mean, I think part of it, it seems like you've had a bit of a difficult struggle and you want to make it easier for other people, it sounds like.
I
But when did
yeah.
that start? When did that happen? The idea that you want to help other people, you want to make their lives better.
So I I have to agree with that. Like I grew. It was a process, and it was a huge process of growing from it, and then finally achieving that. And the process of achieving that helped me to grow from it and become the person that I am today. And then when I finally did achieve it, and leading in to achieving it, I knew that everything that I was doing was a personal goal.
Mhm.
And with it being a personal goal, it's a selfish goal. And that's what a lot of people in life, they have a hard time accepting that in a lot of given situations, and a lot of people are just selfish in general. But it was a selfish goal. For me, this goal that I had, the getting here that I had, and everything that led up to it was all about personal growth and how I could be better. And it was focusing on myself, my physical attributes, my mental status. It was all focused on me and how I could get there the best that I knew possible. But I knew when I finally achieved it, what would I have? I would have Andrew Kurka that achieved something. And yes, I could always say that's my greatest achievement. But what have I done in the process? Have I helped others to grow? Have I helped others to, see that they can achieve their goals as well, to see that they can chase their dreams and they can achieve these things in life? And that was that was where I started focusing on, what was the next step in life. And for me, I've started building a bed and breakfast up here in Alaska, and I take people with disabilities out fishing and hunting, and it's an Airbnb, and I'm still building it. Like this cabin here, I built it myself with my hands. These two right here.
Nice.
Yeah, you can see they're dirty, they're calloused, and that's because I built this house. And I built another one out there, and it's an Airbnb, and I'm opening it up this winter. And the main focus of this is, after I get done with ski racing and doing the selfish portion of life, is I want to use this to be able to give back and show people the things that I truly enjoy in life. For me, skiing is an enjoyment. Like it's fun, but it's not the number one thing that I really enjoy. It's kind of a job. It was my dream. It was the thing that I grasped onto, the thing that I pursued.
Mhm.
But the things that I truly enjoy is the outdoors, the wilderness, the fishing, the hunting, the outdoor life of Alaska and nature. And that's something that a lot of people, when they become disabled or their legs cease to work, don't really get a chance to, get to truly enjoy. It becomes a lot more challenging. And being an Alaskan and living my young life and figuring out how to do it myself, I want to introduce that life. I want to introduce the Alaskan wilderness, fishing, hunting, the outdoor everything, to people with disabilities. And I want to do it through my bed and breakfast, and through hosting camps and through things like that. And I want to give back in, both the physical fun aspects, and then also in the emotional ways, showing them how they can grow and they can achieve things on their own.
Well, I think you're giving yourself a little bit of a hard time in terms of your athletic career being an entirely selfish pursuit. Because I remember seeing you at Breckenridge a couple of years ago at Ski Spectacular, which I think was the first race that you had gone to when you first raced, right? So in Colorado they do this thing called the Ski Spectacular, Disabled Sports USA,
Yeah.
bring out and you were saying to a lot of the kids there whom you were coaching that, hey, if you're having trouble with something, let me know, I'll send you a video. So you were doing this along the way too. This was not entirely selfish. I mean, I understand there's a part of it, but what made you want to do that? That was taking a next step as you were a bit busy athlete pursuing your goal. You had time to stop and talk to these other kids, and help them along the way.
Of course, man. uh, with great power comes great responsibility, and being an athlete that's had success and that young athletes look up to. It was my job to support them the best that I could, and I'm not going to be able to do this forever, and I know that, and it would probably be one of the most beautiful things for me to be able to watch someone that I taught and someone that I coached achieve the same dream that I achieved, or to help them achieve their dream. That's that's probably more wonderful than having to achieved it myself, really.
What's the wisdom, if there's one nugget of wisdom that you could give to that person, as they were embarking on achieving their dream? What's the one nugget of wisdom that you would give them?
Man, there's too much to really say. The one thing that I think would make the biggest impact: don't quit. That's all there is to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the one nugget of wisdom. I mean, if in skiing or in anything, don't quit or give back. One of those two things. Because, when it's man, there's so many things.
Yeah.
Try your best, focus on the process. Like there's so much, but
it sounds like from what you were saying before that it's almost don't quit on yourself.
Yeah, don't quit
As much as
means
don't.
yeah, don't quit means more than just don't just quit on the team, but don't don't quit trying to be the best version of yourself. You might not be able to continue ski racing. You might not continue to be able to really pursue these dreams, but don't ever quit on it. Don't ever give up on it. Always, want to pursue whatever it means to find that next level of whatever your dream might be. It might be a different perspective. It might be a different trail. Like if you're forced to take 50 steps back and you have to take another trail to get to your end goal, then so be it. But it's tough because you don't quit on yourself. You don't give up. You keep pursuing your dream. And then in the process of pursuing your dream, you have to give back, or you have to do something so that the process and the purpose of getting to that point isn't useless. So at any moment, especially in an athlete's career, I've learned, and in a lot of jobs in life and just about anything that you do, there's just about any given moment where it can just be taken away from you. Be like, bye. Later, like it's I'm out here racing and then I get injured in a way that I can't continue to keep ski racing, or something happens. And if that was to happen before I really achieved my dream and before I really achieved that goal that I set out to achieve, then I want to be able to look back and say, this wasn't futile. This wasn't useless. I did my best and I did everything that I could along this way. I helped this person here. I helped that person there. I helped these people here. And that made this part of my entire career, this part of my entire life, purposeful. And that gave this whole area meaning. Whether I never achieved this goal, I did my best and I did what I could in this area. And
does it get easier over time, this idea of not quitting?
It does. Yeah, it definitely does. I think you know that. That's why you asked that question. I think you relate and you understand that completely. There's other people who don't. I know that, but it does. It becomes a lot easier. It becomes ingrained in a person who you are. And it's as simple as putting the shopping cart back when I get done shopping. So many people are like, dude, you have crutches, you have disabled. Why don't you just leave it right there? Like, because I'm going to put it back. It's the right thing to do. I'm not in a rush. I don't have anywhere to go. This is a whole 2 minutes out of my life. of course I'm going to return the shopping cart back. This is the version of myself that is the best version that I can be, even if it's something small and meaningless. Like, I'm going to do the best that I can in this situation. And and it's the little simple things like that, picking up trash when you don't really need to or don't really have to, but you're not doing anything else. Why not?
Part of who you are.
Yeah, you gotta ingrain being the best version of yourself in everything that you do, and when you do, you never regret a single thing in life.
Can we look for you in Beijing in
Yes.
2022?
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan, and I'm training for it currently. I'm preparing myself, and I'm getting ready to really get after it. This whole COVID thing set everything back, but I've been biking and I've been training a lot. I'm in pretty good shape now, and I'm only going to get in better shape over the next 3 months before we start skiing again. And my bed and breakfast is going to be set and ready, so I won't have that distraction in my mind, which will be very useful. Yeah. So you can see me in Beijing, and I promise to do my best there. Can't promise that I'll win, but I promise that I'll try my best.
Well, I think that's the message that you're giving to everybody, is that it really is about this process. And if you can stay committed in those little steps every single day in your preparation, that your performance is about giving your personal best on that day. Will that be the greatest ever? Will that be enough to win? We'll have to find out. That's part of why we're going to tune in, because we as fans want to see you win. But I think that's the great message that you're giving to people, that it really is about finding a way to find your best. And if you do that, then you're going to want to find it again in whatever else you're doing.
I would say that would be the strategy. For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Andrew. This is great. Good luck in your training. Good luck with your B&B, and keep doing great things, and we'll keep watching. So thanks
you,
to
Chris.
all of you for tuning in, and thank you, Andrew, for joining us, and we'll see you next week.